Welcome to Sri Lanka!
What's up, explorers? Welcome back to our channel. We're the Choose here from Choose to Explore, where we teach you guys how to see the world
and save $1.
So we just came back from an amazing 6-day trip going all throughout Sri Lanka. And this country has so much to offer.
Sri Lanka is wild, beautiful, and surprisingly easy to travel, but there are a few things that we wish we knew before we landed. If you're planning a trip, this video will help you get prepped the smart way. So the first thing you need to know are the entry requirements and visa requirements for entering Sri Lanka. So as a US citizen, you do need a valid passport with at least 6 months before it expires, and also you do need an e-visa.
The visa application was pretty straightforward and simple in order to complete. It took us about 10 to 15 minutes in order to do, and online it says it takes about 3 days in order to process, but when we filled out the form, we heard back from them within an hour that we got approved.
But still, we do recommend doing it ahead of time. The cost of the visa is 50 USD, and you can do it on arrival, but we do recommend doing it ahead of time online.
Yeah, because we flew an Emirates flight from Maldives to Sri Lanka, and it was a quick flight, like 1.5 to 2 hours. And there still was a pretty long line for customs and baggage, so just to speed through the process, doing it beforehand is definitely recommended. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is when is the best time to visit Sri Lanka. So in order to understand the different seasons, you have to actually understand where Sri Lanka is. So Sri Lanka is on the southeastern side of India, and it is in the Indian Ocean.
So Sri Lanka actually has 2 monsoon seasons depending on the coast that you are visiting. So December to March is the most ideal time if you're visiting the south or west coast. May to September is best for the east. So it's very important to check out the times that you're going to visit because you don't want to get caught in the rain that can really put a damper on your itinerary.
So we visited central, south, and western Sri Lanka in March. And while we did have intermittent rain, the weather did not hinder our itinerary. Our itinerary was jam-packed, and if there was a monsoon, it would have definitely ruined our vacation.
So speaking of jam-packed, how much time do you really need when you visit Sri Lanka?
Now this is absolutely going to be a loaded question, especially because if you have the time, more time is always going to be better. When you look on a map, Sri Lanka doesn't look that big, but let me tell you,
it's that big.
Especially because it's a lot of mountainous, hilly regions and you're driving around, you need time in Sri Lanka. We spent 6 days and we were spending like 6-hour, 5-hour, 8-hour drives going from one place to another. And while we loved it and it had beautiful scenery, you need to be prepared for these long drives going from one place to another in the country. Because our itinerary was so jam-packed and we wanted to see so much, we didn't really spend a lot of time in one specific area. But that's not to say that we didn't have an amazing trip.
Yeah, we got a really good taste of a lot of the different regions, but we do recommend spending probably at least 2 weeks to really do it justice.
Because Sri Lanka is such an amazing country with so much to offer, from wildlife to amazing beaches to cultural experiences and amazing history, you want to plan out your trip for exactly what you want to do. So if you just want to hang out on a beach, you may need less time. But if you want to take a deep dive into culture, see amazing wildlife, see different historical sites, visit some of those beaches, pick tea in the tea plantations, waking up early for these beautiful sunrise hikes, I promise you, you're going to want to spend some time.
So now let's get into transportation and how you're going to get around the country.
So you're going to love this if you're coming from the United States because Uber works and it's super easy. It's the exact same app that you're accustomed to using. Especially if you're in a major city like Colombo or Ella or Kandy, Uber is going to be widely accessible. Now, just because it is there doesn't mean that it will be your best option. So Ubers we found were pretty affordable. Like we took Uber from the airport to our accommodation and it was like less than $2. And I don't know too many places around the world where you can get an Uber for less than $2, especially from the airport.
But there also is an Uber alternative and it's called Pick Me. So definitely check out the different prices between Uber versus Pick Me to see which one works best for you and your budget.
Sometimes the prices for Pick Me were less expensive than Uber, but always compare before you do it. Also, I will note that Pick Me was great because you could also ride Tuk Tuks in Pick Me. But I do also want to note that a lot of times Pick Me drivers may prefer cash instead of using Uber app and paying with your credit card. The next mode of transportation is going to be Tuk Tuks directly. So Tuk Tuks are 3-wheeled vehicles that are small, kind of like a golf cart, I would say. In different parts of the world, they call them rickshaws, they call them tuk tuks, but they're small little vehicles with very small wheels. You can book these directly, but be sure to negotiate the prices, and they're usually going to be pretty affordable to go long distances. But if you're going from one major city to another and you have limited time, a tuk tuk may be impractical because they are not as fast and they're a lot smaller.
But if you're just beach hopping, a tuk tuk could be pretty fun and pretty convenient.
So if you want to feel like a local, riding in a tuk tuk may be one of the best options you can have.
And if you really want to feel like a local, you can even rent a tuk tuk and drive a tuk tuk around Sri Lanka.
So I actually tried this and I absolutely failed. This is because a lot of tuk tuks are going to be manual drive. And if you are accustomed to driving manual cars or riding in a manual ATV or something like that, then it may be easier for you, but I rented a tuk tuk with Rent My Tuk, and I highly recommend them because they gave me a whole training session. They gave me the different directions and how to do it. They even helped me process a local Sri Lankan driver's license, which allowed me to drive through Sri Lanka, whether it's in a tuk tuk or driving a regular vehicle. Also, with Rent My Tuk, I think I got it for like $15 a day, which is an amazing price. But I couldn't get over the hill, literally, of driving a manual vehicle because it's on my bucket list to do because I felt like a failure after failing this.
So when we were looking to rent our tuk-tuk, the automatic electric version was all sold out, so that was just our luck. You have to really do that in advance. So if you are not comfortable driving manual, driving stick, and you are interested in driving a tuk-tuk around Sri Lanka, definitely check out our Explore Sri Lanka travel guide and book ahead of time, please.
Now, the next means of transportation is going to be, in my opinion, the best mode of transportation, and that is going to be renting a car and driving, especially if you have very limited amount of time. And I say this for a multitude of reasons. Number one, depending on the weather, a car is going to be significantly better than a tuk-tuk because it's fully enclosed. So you don't have to worry about you getting wet or your things getting wet. Number two, if you're running around from one place to another, a car is going to be way faster than a tuk-tuk. There are higher speed limits for cars, and you just feel safer moving from one place to another because your tires aren't this big.
Also, while you're in Sri Lanka, there is wildlife. So even when you're driving, you may encounter an elephant. I mean, we didn't, but it is very much possible. And if you're in a tuk-tuk, I don't know, the elephant might not take you seriously. But if you're in a larger vehicle, you may have a better chance.
Also, cars are allowed to drive on the highways, unlike the tuk-tuks, and this really sped up a lot of the driving that I needed, and it gave me more direct pathways. Honestly, with our tight itinerary, there was almost no chance that we could do what we did in 6 days, especially going to the beaches in the south in our last day. But because we could drive on the highways, we were able to get so much done in our last day and see so much. But I do want to give you some tips about driving in Sri Lanka.
So basically in the United States, we drive the complete opposite that they do in Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka, you're going to be sitting on the right side of the car and driving on the left side of the road.
Also, for majority of the drives, they're going to be single lane traffic. So if you have a very slow tuk-tuk or a small motorbike, the only way to get around is to go across the line of traffic and going back in.
And most likely in those smaller vehicles, you will be overtaken.
Also, when you're driving or riding in Sri Lanka, you have to be aware of the buses because they are so crazy, dodging in and out of traffic and with no regard for anybody in the road. You have to really be alert and just give them the right of way because bad things can happen.
Other than that, the roads were very smooth and pretty easy to drive.
Also, the cheapest and most affordable way of getting around is going to be public transportation. We personally didn't use this option because we had such a limited time, but you typically can go from one city to another for really affordable.
The trains are very popular, some of the most beautiful train rides in the world, they say, and you can actually book these, but definitely do them ahead of time.
Especially if you're going the famous train route from Ella to Kandy. You're going through the tea plantations and the mountains and the hills, and it's supposed to be one of the most beautiful scenic train rides in the world.
And it's actually very similar routes and scenery that we saw all along our drive, except on the trains, you're definitely tied to their schedules.
Yeah, that drive from Ella to Kandy was so beautiful and scenic. I could only imagine what the train ride is, but the pros of driving is it's just us in the car. I hear that those train rides are so packed, but so beautiful. So do your research if this is something that you want to do as well.
Yeah, I always see people hanging out the trains and just having their hair flow in the wind and enjoying it. So, I mean, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and go for it. Have these tips been helpful so far? If so, please give us a like. And also, if you're watching this within the first 7 days of this video coming out, you can even hype it up so more people can find this in the algorithm. So go ahead. So now let's get into where you're going to stay in Sri Lanka.
So one thing that I will say about Sri Lanka is guest houses and homestays are going to be super popular and actually really, really affordable here in Sri Lanka. We love the homestays because we were able to stay with locals. They were able to give us tips about different regions. A lot of times they came with amazing breakfast with local food. A lot of times they could orient us on the drive that we had in store for us ahead.
And let us know what to look out for, and they were very helpful.
There also are going to be a lot of hostels depending on the regions that you're going to be in, because backpacking in Sri Lanka is very common.
And there's also more luxurious stays as well, but they are typically a little bit more affordable than you would find in other areas of the world.
So one thing that I do want to mention about this region of the world is bathrooms are commonly wet rooms.
Yeah, so wet rooms, it really means that the entire bathroom is getting wet when you shower. So there's no separation from the shower, from the toilet, from the sink. Like, the shower is basically over the toilet and everything gets wet, and it's honestly not my favorite thing.
Live pretty much won't stay in a place if they have a wet room, but a lot of the more budget-friendly accommodations are going to have wet rooms, so just note that.
Yeah, so if you want to pay just a little bit more for a separate shower, that's available as well. And we have all of our top recommendations for where to stay, including places with and without wet rooms, included in our Explore Sri Lanka travel guide, which you can see linked in the description below, as well as on choosetoexplore.com as always.
So next thing we're going to talk about is local people and culture. So Sri Lanka actually got its independence from Britain in 1948. So because of the British influence, I will say that majority of the people that we spoke to did speak English.
Especially in the tourist areas, but once you get off the beaten path, it is more limited English, but the people are all very helpful here. And overall, the locals are kind, curious, and respectful.
One thing that really surprised me about Sri Lanka is a lot of people were really interested in us as black travelers. Liv and I were pretty much the only black travelers that we saw in Sri Lanka. And in a lot of the major tourist spots, a lot of the locals stopped to take pictures of Liv and I.
Yes, or with us, but they were always very kind. They would always ask first. But honestly, I really didn't understand the fascination because we all were kind of the same skin tone. I don't really know.
But listen, I'll take Obama anywhere I go.
That's literally what they called him. Another thing to note is that hospitality is really big here, from the kind tuk tuk drivers all the way to the generous hosts. So now let's talk all things money.
So in Sri Lanka, the formal currency that they use is the Sri Lankan rupee. There were some places that we were able to use card, but I will say in Sri Lanka, cash is going to be king.
So we definitely recommend using ATMs to get the best exchange rates when you do want to withdraw cash.
We typically use the Charles Schwab debit card, which has no foreign transaction fees, and we get the local rate and they reimburse you for ATM fees at the end of every single month. Also, I will say that if you are going from one city to another, please be sure to stop at the ATM beforehand, because a lot of the major cities will have ATMs, but some of the smaller towns may not have it, so just take advantage of them. Also, I will say in general, Sri Lanka is one of the most affordable places that we've ever been. We got really accustomed to eating for $3 to $4 for two people, staying at $10 to $15 accommodations, entering activities for $5. The prices for the most part were a dream, and this is a place that I could see myself staying a while.
So now let's talk about what to eat in Sri Lanka.
So if you love cuisine, Sri Lanka is an amazing place to be.
Especially if you love flavor.
Sri Lanka is located directly in the spice route, and you could taste those spices and those flavors in any dish that you have.
So we have to start off with the curries. You can get the curried fish, lentils, jackfruit, lots of great options, especially if you're vegetarian.
Now, if you're not vegetarian, you can get a lot of other items such as chicken, beef, lamb, tons of amazing things that they'll curry, and so much good flavor. So next we're going to talk about one of my favorite items that I had, which is local to Sri Lanka, which is going to be the kotu. It's going to be like vegetables. You can get it with chicken. It has the roti. It's nice textures, lots of flavor, and really hearty as well. Also, I do want to mention one of the most amazing things about Sri Lanka is going to be the fresh fruit and produce. When you're going through, you're going to see so many different fruit stands with amazing fruits that you might not see in a lot of places around the world. The Queen's favorite was going to be those king coconuts. They are so sweet, so flavorful, and you can get them almost anywhere in Sri Lanka.
Yes, and we have a whole bunch of different must-try foods as well as must-try places to eat in Sri Lanka included in our Explore Sri Lanka travel guides. Definitely download it.
So your packing list to Sri Lanka is going to be super important. So here's what you need.
So for starters, you are going to want to pack some light breathable clothing because it is pretty humid all year round. Also, there's plenty of beautiful temples to visit, but definitely make sure that you bring some modest attire, such as things that you can cover your shoulders and your knees so that you can be appropriate and respectful.
A lot of the temples that we visited, like the Buddha tooth relic, you needed to be fully covered, otherwise they won't even let you in. So just be sure to have some modest clothing or have some rupees on the side so that you can purchase something to cover up.
Also going to want to pack some Brief Safe sunscreen as well as bug spray. Don't want to get bit out by all these mosquitoes. Also, pretty crucial to have some comfortable flip-flops and walking shoes. If you are going to be exploring, hiking, definitely some shoes with some grip. Also, a good idea to bring a dry bag and a quick dry towel for those beach days or those waterfall hikes. Also, be sure to bring a universal travel adapter so that you can charge all your electronics, because in Sri Lanka they do use a Type G plug.
Next thing we're going to talk about is staying connected in Sri Lanka.
So we did find that at different cafes, restaurants, guest houses, hotels, that Wi-Fi was common, but the speeds do vary. But in your more rural or mountainous areas, you can expect slower and more spotty connection.
Honestly, that's why using an eSIM and connecting to the local tower is the best way that we were able to stay connected during our trip.
We do recommend checking out different eSIM providers, and we have several different links in our description that you can check out and compare the plans and prices, and also discount codes included, so check those out. And no matter what, you should absolutely download offline Google Maps.
So this way you can have some idea where you are, so you're not just in a random place in the mountains and nobody can find you.
So we've kind of mentioned wildlife, but now let's really get into it.
So Sri Lanka is world renowned for having some amazing game drives and wildlife experiences. A lot of the wildlife experiences, you don't even need to go to a game drive, you'll just be driving and see it. During our time in Sri Lanka, we actually didn't get to the side where a lot of the safaris are, but we were still able to see an elephant, wild dogs,
lots of monkeys,
tons of monkeys. So you definitely can get an amazing experience with wildlife, even if you have a short amount of time.
There are also a lot of signs related to watching out for peacocks, so you can probably see a peacock while you're out there too. We didn't, but it's possible.
Next thing that we're going to talk about are beaches and surfing in Sri Lanka.
Now there are gorgeous beaches all over the island and surf spots for all different levels.
In our last day, we saw a wide variety of beaches. We saw local beaches, we saw tourist beaches, we found surfing beaches, we found so many amazing places to visit. And if you guys are interested in the best beaches in Sri Lanka, we actually made a video on it, so you can see that linked in the description below. The next thing that we're going to talk about is one of the Queen's favorite and must-do things in Sri Lanka, and that's going to be all things tea.
So Sri Lanka is one of the world's top tea producers, and I think it'd be a shame if you didn't visit at least one tea plantation while you're there.
Especially on our drive from Ella to Kandy and going through those winding roads and seeing all the different tea plantations, it was just so beautiful to see.
It definitely made you want to learn more, so that's exactly what we did. There's different plantations you can visit, and you can actually get more experience just going through the plantations, picking the tea, learning from the workers, learning all the different things you need to know about tea, more than you could probably even imagine.
Liv actually put on a traditional sarong and she learned, but let me tell you, Liv is the slowest tea picker I've ever seen. The lady was there and Liv was...
I was trying my best, but it wasn't quite good enough.
But we still had an amazing experience, and I guess we helped and paid for some labor.
Oh my gosh, I have a whole new appreciation for tea. I loved it before, but I love it even more now. So the next point is very important to cover, and it's all about safety. Now, our entire time that we were in Sri Lanka, we did feel safe even when we were walking around smaller towns at night.
So even though we did feel safe, that's not to say that you should let your guard down and not use your practical street knowledge.
Because after all, you are in a foreign place and you do want to be alert and aware of your surroundings and not take anything for granted.
One thing that is a must do everywhere we go is to get Safety Wing travel medical insurance. We love Safety Wing because it's affordable. Usually it's around $2 a day depending on how long you're staying and your age. And it covers so many things, from lost baggage to missed flights to having to go to the hospital.
So even though these are things that we would never wish for on a trip for anybody, but they are possible and you do just want to feel covered with Safety Wing. So if you do want to check out a quote for your next trip, we have it linked in the description below. So whether you're here for surfing, safaris, or sipping tea in the mountains, Sri Lanka is one of those places that completely surprises you in the best way.
So there you guys have it. These are our tips for you in Sri Lanka. Did any of these surprise you? Or did we forget anything? Please let us know in the comments below. So thank you guys so much for checking out our channel. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.